Today is my rest day after my slow 10 miles yesterday. But the only thing I can do is get outside, find some fresh air, and pray for peace.
They just sent 1,000 more troops, the 82nd Airborne, to Iran. I told y'all that we were in World War III. They're already sending troops over there. So yes, you effed around and found out. Now your husband is flying across seas to go to a war. Now your cousin going to war. Y'all thought this was a joke. Y'all thought that I was capping when I said that they're gonna send more troops over there. They're gonna do a draft. This is just the beginning. They never tell you the whole truth about how it's gonna go down. But if you start paying attention and put the pieces together, you can clearly see that this war is gonna be bigger than what they saying. Because why would they need to keep sending more troops over there?
Why don't we use Israeli troops for the ground invasion? Why don't we use, okay, is this Islamophobic? Why don't we use Saudi troops for the ground invasion? If the Saudis and the Israelis want ground troops so bad, why don't you use your own army? I mean, your armies that you constantly brag about, the Saudis are like, they better not let us get into the war. Okay, who's stopping you, big guy, okay? And the Israelis, IDF. Yeah, the IDF is fantastic at murdering women and children who are totally defenseless. But when it comes to Iran, they're like, no, that's a meat grinder. Send in the Americans, the schmuck Americans. We bought all their leaders and we'll drive them into the meat grinder. And that is what's happening. Later in the show, you'll see the Israelis are talking about taking more land, including Lebanon and Syria, big parts of Lebanon and Syria, because they figure, well, America's gonna pay for it. Why not expand our empire?
Israel has announced that they will not be putting boots on the ground in Iran, but Americans will. Where will Israelis be putting boots on the ground? They are going to continue to murder civilians in Gaza, and they're now taking over southern Lebanon. So the Israelis are expanding their own territory while they're letting Americans fight their battle against Iran. I can only imagine that it's because IDF troops, as good as they are at shooting civilians and blowing up residential neighborhoods, don't really want to take on the Iranian military. Anybody sick of this shit yet?
If what the Washington Post is reporting is true, the United States could be on the verge of putting troops on the ground in Iran, and this could move faster than people expect. The Washington Post says that the Pentagon is preparing for weeks of ground operations. And when that actually happens, this is what comes next. First, this is a major shift. Up until now, it's been airstrikes and missiles and positioning. Ground troops, that's a direct engagement. Second, this likely wouldn't be a full invasion. The Washington Post is pointing towards targeted operations, which means special forces, strategic locations, fast in and fast out. Third, the risk level jumps immediately. Once troops are on the ground, everything changes. And of course, there are families all across this country right now that are watching this very closely because they are parents with sons and daughters in the military and spouses, kids, just waiting to see what happens next. Because when you hear ground operations, things start getting scary. That's someone you love potentially being sent into it. Fourth, this opens the door to a much bigger response, not just inside Iran, but across the whole region. Once ground operations begin, it's really hard to pull things back. And if this moves forward, it's no longer just a headline. It's a completely different phase of this war.
It looks like we are headed for a ground war. Is that your feeling as well?
Very much so. Whenever people tell you something is not true of Donald Trump, it's true. So when the people around him are insisting Donald Trump never bluffs, it's important to understand Donald Trump always bluffs. He's always trying to buy things without cash. He's always trying to get things done without the votes. He's always trying to do things illegally. His plan seemed to be, I get away with everything. Venezuela was cheap and easy. This will be cheap and easy. Whack them from the air, watch them give in, take the victory parade, name something after yourself. In this case, he's dealing with really fanatical people, horrible people, murderous people. And now he's in a situation where he's trying to bluff them into giving up. And so he keeps escalating the rhetoric. He's brought Marines nearby. He's apparently sending another 10,000 troops. And he's going to trap himself in the bluff that was meant to work on others. He will find himself in a few weeks with the Strait of Hormuz still closed, Oil prices high, the world economy in trouble, his numbers at home even worse than now, and he's not good at calculating things. As I often say about him, no one who's good at risk management goes bankrupt as often as Donald Trump.
Hello everyone, welcome back. My name is Kola, and you know what's crazy with this situation with the US and Iran war? It's starting to feel like something way bigger than people are admitting to, and like we are now hearing reports that the US is actually considering sending ground troops into Iran. I don't think even it's considering, they are actually doing it, and not just airstrikes anymore. Not just we are watching this situation anywhere else, but it's actual boots on the ground, you see. And if you know anything about history, the moment ground troops get involved in wars, that's when things stop being operations and start becoming full on wars. And what makes this even more intense is that it's not even confirmed officially yet, but troops are already being moved into the Middle East, like thousands of them. So it's like they're saying we haven't decided, but at the same time they're preparing like something big is coming. And then you look at Iran's response, they're not backing down at all. They're literally warning that if US troops step foot in Iran, there will be serious retaliation from the Iran people. And this war, it's not even yet over. But before we dive in ahead, let's first watch how people are reacting to US sending ground troops in the Middle East, and then we're going to come back with a full commentary at the end of the video.
That's right, 2,200 Marines just showed up to the Middle East. Let me break this down for you real quick. The 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit and 2,200 Marines just got to the Middle East on amphibious warships, and that's not it. The 11th MEU, another 2,500 Marines, are already on the way. These aren't just random units. These are Marine Expeditionary Units, meaning they bring air, ground, and logistics all in one package floating off the coast, ready to hit anywhere. We're talking about F-35Bs, Ospreys, amphibious assault craft, and what does that mean? They don't need a runway. They don't need permission. They come from the air, land, and sea. And here's the part people don't understand. This isn't a full invasion force. This is a kick in the door, hit it hard, and get out capability. I've seen it. I was part of one, and it's nothing like you've ever seen. It's what we do. It's what we train for. It's in our blood. And don't get it twisted no matter what you hear. Trust me, these devil dogs are ready to eat. They're like caged animals, rabid dogs, ready to uphold the title of United States Marine. So while headlines are still catching up and people are still arguing about what might happen, everything that needs to be in place already is.
Believe it or not, which I already knew, there are Trump voters out there that are still supporting Donald Trump going to war with Iran.
Their support for the war is strong, but you can see them wrestling with concerns.
I think it's a little touch and go. I'm not disagreeing with what's going on because I think it needed to be done the last 47 years.
The way Trump has been handling his business,
yeah.
I would have thought he would have already handled it, but this is a lot bigger than we know about.
How would you feel about US boys on the ground down there?
Yeah, I didn't want to see that.
What would you feel about that?
As far as boots on the ground, it's whatever it takes to get that regime. Once you start it, there is no going back.
And it gets worse. They seem to be okay with high gas prices.
Support for Trump bears deep into this land of rivers and ravines, where 8 in 10 people voted for him.
It's got all 3 generations of coal miners.
Chad Bishop, famous for making the local drink, says he's fully behind Trump's handling of Iran, even if he later sends ground troops.
Trump's going to do what he's got to do to keep America straight. Yeah, keep us on the, to keep us great and the country thriving. No, nobody's going to run over us with Trump in there.
Rising gas prices are especially painful here, where a quarter of people live in poverty. This young mother says she doesn't blame Trump, though.
We stay at war with everybody, it seems like, and it's just like you can't blame a war for the process here.
The people here pride themselves on being survivors, not of war, but of economic decline.
It's incredible how you Trump voters are okay with anything bad for America as long as Donald Trump is the one that does it. It's like you don't get it. You are literally paying Donald Trump to make every single one of you suffer. He's lifted the sanctions on Iran, all right? He's lifted the sanctions on Russia, and they're making a boatload of money to keep this vicious cycle going. And guess who's paying for it? You. And you're okay with this because it's your daddy doing it to you? At least with Joe Biden and Barack Obama, you had health insurance. Wow, you had the Inflation Reduction Act. You know what I'm saying? You actually had food stamps, SNAP benefits, and you could fly. You're not getting anything, and you're paying more, MAGA. Y'all got to be some of the... It's like he says about you all the time. You either hate yourself or you hate your country. And we all know it's both.
Listen. He went from 48 hours to 5 days, from 5 days to 10 days. Now, the 10-day mark is the magic number. Number one, he'd been sending troops by the thousands to the Middle East. Number two is he got to open the partial shutdown. The TSA workers got to get paid. The ICE workers got to get back out on the streets. Now, all this shit plays into one thing. He's going to put boots on the ground, folks. The shit's gonna get brutal. He's about to send them soldiers into a meat grinder. And when the American people start seeing all those caskets come back, you know what they're gonna do. They're gonna flood the streets, protest like a motherfucker, and it's gonna get bad. You're gonna have a World War III going on over there, and you're gonna have a civil war right here in the United States. Listen to what I'm telling you. He need them ICE agents back out on the streets. He need the National Guards. He need whatever left of the military that we got over here on the streets because the American people don't believe in this shit. I'm telling you, man, how this shit gonna look. Right now, it's calm. We see a little bombs dropping here and there. You know what I'm saying? A couple soldiers then lost their life and people, some of them hurt. They ain't giving us the real number. But you ain't seen the real thing yet that's about to happen. And that's what's going to tip this bitch over. Listen, man, you got some folks that was in high positions in the government that done left their positions to become whistleblowers. And they all got one thing in common, what they all say. You cannot win on the ground in Iran. But Mr. Hothead, Mr. Know-It-All, Mr. Businessman think he's better than everybody. He think he got the answer. You're about to see, folks. That's why I tell you, stack up on your shit. Keep your head on the swivel because things is about to get bad, folks. I don't know how many ways to fucking tell you. You know what I'm saying? It's getting there. Y'all step out there. Get it out the mud.
Will the U.S. really put troops on the ground in Iran? Would they do an invasion? And unfortunately, they are, and it's going to result in a massacre. Now, some people say, well, it's not going to be a problem because we did this in Iraq, we did this in Afghanistan. These are very different situations because in Iraq, the U.S. kind of deployed, before their attacks, deployed their troops in, the Saudi Arabia. They put all their positions in there, allowed the airplanes to kind of destroy a lot of the defense systems and the military there. And then the troops moved from Saudi Arabia into Iraq. You can just walk in, basically, also from Kuwait. But with Iran, you can't do that because all the borders of Iran, no one's going to allow the U.S. to position their troops there, do an invasion from there. And also with Iraq, Saddam didn't attack those U.S. troops because he didn't believe that, even though with all the deployment of the troops around Iraq, and you can see them, Saddam didn't believe that they're actually going to do an invasion. It was more of he thought it was a tactic to pressure him to make some concessions. With Iran, they're not going to wait, as they've proved many times again. The times of waiting has far gone away. They're going to do an attack straight away. And they've already started attacking a lot of the equipment, the jamming equipment, airplanes, the command central to do the communication, and the kind of radar, the AWAC, was destroyed in the Sultan Air Base in Saudi Arabia. That's like a radar that's in the air that can see hostile and neutral and friendly airplanes. And they've also attacked some of the positions in the UAE and Kuwait, that U.S. positions that were preparing for this attack. And in Saddam's time, there weren't drones. Now we have drones that could easily, anytime there's a grouping of U.S. military personnel, drones can come in and just attack them. And in Afghanistan case, there was a big anti-Taliban military group that was in Afghanistan already that the U.S. supported to kind of create a place where the U.S. can land their troops. And also they came from Tajikistan to kind of move into Afghanistan. In this case, all of Iran's neighbors are not going to allow this to happen. And Iran, again, can just attack any military grouping of people as they come near Iran. So the only other place is kind of Azerbaijan, which has ties with Israel, and there's has a bit of conflict with Iran. But I don't think Russia, which is the neighbor of Azerbaijan, this is Russia over here, is going to allow any deployment of U.S. troops on the border with Russia. So that's a no-no too. And so the only attack can come from really the Gulf countries and from the water, which is one of the groups that the U.S. has deployed is the amphibious kind of group that can come from the water and do those. But those have already been attacked by Iran. Some of them have that were kind of bordering Kuwait, that were just kind of positioning themselves in Kuwait. So that's the thing. Whatever position the Americans are going to have over here to deploy those troops, they're going to continuously be attacked by hypersonic missiles or the drones. So they're not going to wait for the U.S. to position themselves.
So there's a lot of talk at the moment about the Americans maybe landing ground forces somewhere in Iran, and there's two things that are generally discussed. One is the idea of special forces raids along the coast, but the one that is getting people really concerned is the idea they might try and land on one of the islands that Iran holds. The one people talk about is a place called Karg Island. Now that's in the north of the Persian Gulf, and it's where there's a huge Iranian oil gas facility. If the Americans were to do this, Donald Trump has said it would be very easy. I don't think many people agree with him on that. It would involve forces either coming in by parachute, on boat, or maybe by helicopter, and trying to take this island in the face of what would be undoubtedly stiff Iranian resistance. There are hundreds of thousands of Iranian forces, some of them very well trained. We don't know how many are there, but they will have forces. So even if the Americans do take this, what do they do next? Now they're suggesting it would put pressure on the Iranian regime, but there is another alternative, that the Iranians can attack the island back. It would be within range of artillery, of drones, of short-range missiles. And there could be a situation where American forces have landed on what's a relatively small island and suddenly come under sustained fire. Now, if you imagine if they took heavy casualties, there's going to be huge public outcry in the US, and who knows how President Trump would react. If they can hold it, though, there's going to be outrage in Iran. And I think a lot of people see this as whatever happens, this could be an escalatory move. It could take this conflict into new and dangerous areas.
And just so you know, we are already seeing a preview of that from the Iran, and Iran is using drones, as we have seen, and not just small ones, like coordinated drones attacks hitting US targets and bases across the region and even the neighboring countries. This isn't even the kind of war people are used to seeing. We are used to seeing men fight with their guns and swords out there in the ground, but this time around they are using drones to kill each other. This is more like constant pressure, cheap drones, surprise attacks, hitting multiple places all at once, and even the US military is struggling to keep up with how fast this kind of warfare is evolving. Like, they didn't expect this retaliation from Iran. And this is where it gets even scary. Because if ground troops actually go in, it won't be like these old school wars where it's just tanks and soldiers facing each other and killing each other. This would be drones from the sky, missiles hitting bases every hour and then, and surprise attacks from different directions, and you're just sitting and you're just seeing missiles coming on your way, and no clear front line at all. It becomes unpredictable. You don't know when they'll retaliate. And now think about the human side of this, right? Because we always talk about strategy and politics, but nobody really talks about the families and how they are feeling when they send their loved ones to such wars. And to make matters worse, they're being sent to countries they don't even know of, you see. And imagine being a parent or a wife, or a husband, and hearing that your loved one might be sent into Iran. We all know how dangerous Iran is right now. And not just deployed, but into a situation where retaliation is already happening. Iran is attacking endlessly, and we have already seen US troops get injured and even killed from missiles and drone strikes in this Iran-US conflict. And so for the families, it's not abstract, and it's a real fear they're going through. And even for ordinary citizens, they are living in fear right now. People in the US are already divided as to who did we vote for. And some are like, we have no response to this. Like, the government just chooses to decide what they want. And where are we even getting into another Middle East war again? We have already seen such wars like in Iraq, and it didn't end up well. Because let's be honest, once something like this escalates, it's very hard to control. This war could turn into a very long-term war. We don't know when it will end. And a regional conflict pulling in other countries, as you have seen. NATO is already refusing to even involve themselves. And the craziest part is both sides feel like they are already reacting and not starting it. The US says it's defending its interests, while Iran says it's defending itself from aggression from the US. So nobody wants to look like they're backing down at all. That's how conflicts spiral. And not because someone planned a world war, but because nobody wants to be the one who steps back and be the bigger man. And honestly, if ground troops actually go in, this situation could change overnight. This won't just be headlines anymore we are seeing on our TLs. It will be a completely different level. I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking, maybe I'm too invested in this war, but this feels like one of those moments where the world is quietly shifting and we don't know what's happening and who is to blame, and people won't realize how serious it is until later on, until people have lost their lives. But tell me in the comments how you all feel about US sending ground troops in the Middle East. Do you think that's a wise idea, considering how Iran is retaliating and how we have already seen even in Russia how people are getting killed using drones? And I'm wondering, will ground troops really bring an impact? But I want to hear from you guys how you feel about this. And finally, credit goes to all the respective owners of the clips and content used in my video. The That's and Perceptive made today's work possible, guys. And if you loved today's video and you would want to see more of this, ensure to leave a like. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and share this video widely. Remember, it helps the channel grow. And I'll see you in the next one.